So
But
we got another question a little bit up in chat that I wanted to answer because I think it's kind of interesting. So it's from Salaf Halcyon, and they say, "What is the opportunity cost of hiring an editor? Isn't most of the editing simply deleting the fat? Not my talent. Sounds like cropping an image to me. Sorry if that comes off as demeaning." And this is, I think this is a really interesting question because it is something that a lot of people wouldn't understand how to think about. But when you actually think about it, I think it makes a lot of sense. It's like sort of counterintuitive to understand at first, but the opportunity cost, at least I can explain how I feel about it, and then maybe you all who have a little bit more output than me can also talk about it. But uh, for example, when you are hiring an editor, you are hiring someone to do work for you. What comes with that is, all of, at least in America, like the tax. If this becomes a recurring thing that you are sending recurring payments to for a lot of money, this becomes like a tax concern. Like that person is your employee or is a contractor for you. You have to make sure that you have time set aside to deal with that. On top of that, you're paying for someone's time. So like, I'm just going to like throw some numbers out here to contextualize this. If someone wanted to hire me to edit their videos, they are paying not only for my experience with like DaVinci Resolve and my like critical know-how of like, okay, this would be good to keep in a video and this would be bad to keep in a video, and I'm cutting it out, cutting it in, and like adding effects to it and stuff like that. Like, I mean, of course, it's going to depend on the style of the video. If you want to have that like punchy 10-minute YouTube video style where you like zoom in on faces and have the like, wow, like, sounds and stuff like that, that's going to be a different skill set than just like editing an LP, right? But you have to understand that at the hour it takes me to like take a video that Keith sends me completely unseen, I have to watch that video. I have to watch the full length of that video to understand what's in that video. So that's an hour of my time. And then I need to spend an hour editing that down to whatever, because cutting out 30 minutes of video in a Let's Play does not take 30 minutes, but it also doesn't necessarily take 5 minutes. And like making those cuts and making sure that that works and that the video flows correctly is not it's not like a simple process. It's a like, all right, I'm going to do this cut and now I'm going to see how does the video play correctly? Does the edit work? Is it noticeable? Is it not noticeable, etc. Then I have to balance that around the cost of the hour that I am losing. So just like throwing numbers out there, I make like $46 an hour at my current job. And if I were to like, if that's like my base value of like, this is what my time is worth for an hour, then like you have to add all the expertise onto it and then send Keith a bill. Like editing a single a single Let's Play episode is going to be like close to like 75, maybe $80 an episode at the current rate of hiring someone like me to do that. Now, of course, not everyone is balancing the cost of editing and their editing experience against like their day job, right? Like, and it's not equivalent. Like some people have really specialized skill sets. They might be like $120 a video or like $50 a video or $40 a video, depending on what they have going on, what their experience level is, and if that's their actual career, if they have all the processes set up to do that. But what you're ultimately asking for is for someone to do a very high demand, high tech job for you on demand, on a schedule, just to free up your own time. So you're paying them what you would need to justify your gained hour, basically. So you're cutting them in on the increase in your output by like decreasing your cut of that output. And that can be really tough to get started because you need to then like spend all the time vetting different editors to see who you like jive with, who's reliable, what their style's like, who has the best rates, who has like competitive rates for what you want them to do, and then like who actually fits into your schedule and who you can like just on a fundamental level like tolerate working with, because that becomes a like really
Yeah.
important fixture of your channel. Like editors
Yeah.
have personality, and like especially if you have like a video, if like a video essayist is doing this, like you constantly see them. They're like this unseen second person in a video, right? So you also have to vet their ability as a sort of invisible co-host. Like there is a lot of effort and time and money that
Someone
goes
you've
into
never met before that you then trust
Yeah,
with your voice,
exactly.
essentially.
Yeah.
that
And
goes
it's like-
into editing videos and stuff. It's just a lot of trust you have to cultivate too.
When it comes to Let's Play stuff, it's just that, like, we're talking about videos where each individual video makes a few dollars total.
Yeah.
So like the idea that like if anyone like if I was gonna hire anyone, I'd be hiring talent. Like I'd be trying to
Co-hosts and stuff.
The first thing I would do is try to be able to pay the people I make videos with, because then they could potentially have more time to actually make said videos with me, where as opposed to like the idea of trying to pay an editor. And like for that kind of stuff, like the editor, it's like, am I even saving time if I then have to like re-watch every video they edit to see if they even would making the choices that I would make? Because like I don't know what they're putting out, and like if they do something weird to my video and then I get in trouble for something, then it's like, wow, you think that you would vet the content you're putting out before you put it out in front of minors and stuff or whatever the fuck, and suddenly I'm on the hook for like some choice that some other person made when I was just trying to get my Let's Plays done.
Yeah.
Like, and then all this other stuff there. And but as far as like the thing where I'd be much more likely to consider an editor is the video essays, just because doing those massive editing projects is so grueling. But then you have the problem, which is that like I'm always doing media analysis, so this poor editor has to like put serious time in familiarizing theirself with the source material and doing basically almost as much as work as I am at thinking about it, so that they can sit there and like find the relevant clips for everything I'm talking about, when like in many cases I'm not talking about like, wow, I happened to reference a scene once. It's like, no, I'm talking about like the theme of this thing. How do you find the right footage to couple with this theme I've talked about when you've never seen this movie or anime or whatever, and it might be a multi-season show like Beastars and so on. So like, how do they even edit that? They just have to put an ungodly amount of time just to catch up with what I even know about the thing before they can even start trying to edit the footage. Otherwise, I'm just hiring someone to like string together my best takes of my audio recording, and then I have to go back and make the real video myself anyway. Editing another person is just like, incorporating anyone else into your project is a nightmare. The only way to do it is probably what Sarah Z does, where they and Emily have like they co-write.
Sarah Z, sorry.
Yeah, they they engage with the media together. They co-write their scripts together and edit them together, and then just one of them like records the face stuff for the videos, and then they probably edit it together and so on. Like, and it's just a team working on the project together the whole time through. Like I might sit down and like co-write the eventual Echo video with Toaster because he's really invested in that and so on, and that'll be like a different experience and so on. But like the idea of like writing a giant video essay and then handing it off to an editor feels insane. Like it feels impossible to do, and that's why basically no one does. Like I can't really even think of anyone that does do that. Like I don't really know people that don't edit their own video essays besides like Quentin reviews maybe, where he writes these nightmare 7-hour videos and he mentions that he farms it out to like 6 different editors to each do a chunk of it basically.
At
that point you have to be making money, and I'm like, I just do not have margins. Like, and if I get margins, I'm probably gonna put them towards being able to afford an apartment one day, as opposed to like, how do I best redirect this towards paying more people so I still don't make any more money.
I've seen I think the interesting ones I've seen, which I don't know how reasonable it is, I've seen like people do multiple editors for one particular video, so you can kind of and I think that a lot of it is done as more of an intern basis. The idea is that you're giving someone the opportunity to make to edit a small chunk, so it's not like you're asking them to do an entire video for free. You can
Yeah.
mitigate the morality there by having a lot of people do small chunks of it, but all of them are getting the not necessarily just exposure, but you don't have to you pay like a smaller amount because they're doing less work for less amount of time. And then in the interim, they're like you can get a style, or you can get a feel for how all these people will edit your stuff, and then you can kind of have a revolving around of people that you would choose to work with. It's kind of like getting commissions from a bunch of different artists and seeing how all of them respond to that kind of work. And then you go like, yeah, this guy and this guy are consistent, but this guy and this guy are kind of wild, and this guy doesn't even know what he's doing. You know, like you could just there's like a lot of different approaches to it, but I do agree with like the way that Keith says is like I think there's definitely a lot more I think unless you're making videos like say Mr. Beast, where each video is guaranteed to get millions of views, the only issue is about the time you have to create that content. Or like what's his face? I can't remember his name now. Logan Paul. Like no, like just like people who
that is
people
kind of
whose
thing,
entire
like people
your
when
entire
people think of the
video
idea of
isn't-
having an editor, they're thinking about in most cases these companies that make produced content and millions of dollars
like
are
a
on the
Linus
line.
Tech Tips, where it's like they have a style and they have employees. And,
these giant YouTube channels that have like they have an overall voice, and they have a star performer of some kind, but then they have like an editing team and a camera crew, and like they have a staff of people. And the alternative example that are people thinking of are people like Fluke Husky or other people that like make one video a week where they kind of like hang out and fuck around in front of the camera and answer questions or discuss or tell a story or something, and then they hand it off to an editor to then make it more entertaining,
just like trim it into something
they
more
trim the
watchable.
fat, and they'd make some editing jokes, and that person that is likely treating YouTube as a side thing at that point. Like Fluke has a job and just happens to make YouTube videos, and so he just like hangs out and records for a little while, and they're like, okay, editor, I don't know, save this, fix it. And then,
like make it into something useful.
Essentially runs it all. And
It
those
also
are
helps,
often the kinds of people that can pay someone to make a thumbnail for every video, and it's just like a whole project. Like, and a similar alternative is when somebody is just a streamer and all they do is stream. And then there's someone
I was about to say streamers.
and there's somebody whose job it is to make the weekly YouTube video for them, because they don't run the YouTube at all.
That instance,
sorry, go ahead.
That was everyone at once. It's terrifying.
Sorry. I was just going to say, for the streamer angle, I think a big reason that exists is because I think a lot of the YouTube aspect of it, so like the YouTube is just turned into like a social media project. It's there just to promote the stream. And the idea is that the YouTube channel is theoretically not even run by them in that sense. It's just, here's the video. I'm going to give you like 12 hours of video footage. Here's like 12 hours of video footage. I'm going to have an editor edit it all, make the thumbnails, upload it to YouTube, and they just basically get paid by that channel. Like that's their entire income, is this channel that they're running that I'm just creating a huge content dump for.
That's just
like,
meant it's just meant to promote their main income source.
And that's totally reasonable. I think that's probably like the ideal way to go about it if you're
a more equitable way.
If you can consistently output like hundreds of hours of content, that's worth it. Like if you're, like I feel bad for editors for like say one trick channels, like say an Overwatch streamer. It must be incredibly annoying to get like 15 hours of Overwatch matches and have to like pick out like the most interesting things, because like you can see
I hope
that
they
there's
would
this,
at least be like, here's some of the cool stuff that happened. Check out those ones.
Yeah, like I had a good match.
I think a lot of them do
or whatever.
If you know, I've been watching Emong in particular, and he does this thing where he alt tabs out of a lot of, even mid game, he alt tabs out of the game and types stuff up. And I don't know if he's communicating with all that stuff, but
it definitely doesn't need to do that. I know he has a stream deck, he can just press a button and
you can press a button to make a notepad.
He's taking notes. I'm pretty sure at least sometimes he's taking notes for his editors to be like,
it's terrifying.
Fucking Emong, just like mid fucking like time.
So I think
550. That was a really good play of the game, but
I at first I thought he was just chatting to other people like in Discord or whatever, because that's normal. But he does that so often that I like, I don't know. And I mean, that's something I would do, and that's something I do even like in my streams. All of my YouTube footage is streamed first, and then I edit it into a Let's Play. And I talk out loud and say, "Hey, note to editor, who is me." So I don't say the "who is me" part. I say, "Note to editor, sync up this dialogue, or like cut out my last comment because it was bad or whatever." Like there's so many there's things in advance that I think of and say out loud even in a stream that I know I have the luxury of editing out. And like that it can apply to rants that I say.
I exclusively do that as a joke, and I never edit it.
Well, as a joke, it can work.
It's
as
literally
well.
always like editor, make it so that I want it on the first try. Just skip to that part, please.
Well, like in that case though, like I mean, Colonel's getting to something
just
here.
Finish my thought.
Yeah.
I think for some, and at least for me, for some games, I think it wouldn't save time to have an editor, because the amount of communication that you have to have needs to. It's too much, and like you can cut out that communication by just having the same person do the editing.
And it's so up to debate like what even you do keep or remove from a Let's Play. Like there's the idea of like, do you authentically show what the game is and be honest about it, or do you cut any part that you think is too tedious or a lull in the action? And does doing that reduce the impact of what the game is, even like what they even like about the game? Like people, like there's people who complain in my Fallout series that I started doing some of the inventory management between episodes.
That's wild.
Like they're like, what the fuck? I wanted to watch that. There's people that like, oh my god,
see you sit in the menu for 30 minutes, piece of shit.
All the way back in Dragon Age Inquisition in like 2014, there were people who were so excited when I finally did crafting on camera of my gear instead of doing all the boring menu stuff off camera. Like, bro, and there's just this question of like, are those the real fans that are going to stick around and keep watching, and you should cater to them, or should you
those are people that are going to be in an asylum?
Trim all these people.
Don't even bother with them.
Yeah, or do you trim all these things that these people like because it's ruining it for everyone else, or like which parts of the experience of these like slower games do you keep? Like, should I be editing every 30-minute Fallout episode into a 10-minute like highlight reel because it's such a slow-paced game? Like, what is the correct answer?
Well, that's a good point. That's an interesting point that you bring up though, because like, so in my Last of Us playthroughs, right? Like I'm playing HUDless on Grounded, and that's like just the gimmick of that playthrough. And what that means is like, one, okay, so like I'm there to showcase how different this game is, even from playing the regular hardest difficulty when you turn off the HUD, because it changes the way the game is played entirely, because you can't rely on guns nearly as much, and it becomes much more of a close range game and very stealth oriented and tactics oriented. And what people don't realize is like kind of twofold. One, The Last of Us is a very good game for cutting content out of, because when you die, it hard cuts to black and the audio cuts out. So I can get to a point and die, and then I have a hard point to cut. So what the audience doesn't see is that a video that might be, 60 minutes long with multiple deaths in it was actually me spending 8 hours getting through something on, and like learning this process of like, okay, I am going to run to the right and encounter this enemy here at this point, take them out, and then I can immediately dive behind cover, and like the enemy that's going to come there is not going to notice me.
Tell us there's a fake gamer.
Well, there's a lot of trial and error to that, and there's a lot of understanding that goes into it. And like I've gotten much better at these games as I've gone on. As I've said before, like I've beaten them on their hardest difficulties before. So this is like I'm not completely going in blind, but there are moments that are truly puzzles, and I keep in a lot of me understanding and figuring out, little nuances there. But there's also just the realistic aspect of recording a game like this, where like the purpose of this playthrough is not for people to see me die 45,000 times, because after a certain point, my commentary just becomes like a checklist. Like I'm sitting there and I go, okay, I know this life is a test life. So I will be like, all right, I'll like walk through a door and be like, all right, enemy on the right, kill him, dive behind cover. Okay, he's gonna walk over here. I have 6 seconds. Now I'm gonna walk this way. Got him. Okay, now I have to deal with enemy 4 and enemy 7 over here because I've like mapped it all out in my head. And I go upstairs. Oh, and I was headshot. Fuck, like I'm dead. And like 90, like literally, it doesn't matter how much people might like me or my content or might like The Last of Us. No one wants to watch me get stuck on fucking the Pittsburgh financial district in Last of Us Part 1 grounded HUDless
or
for
do
8
they
hours. Like truly no. Like it is it's very frustrating, difficult
market
content
for those
to watch.
Unabridged boss fight videos who are like, I'm here for the story arc. I'm here for the grind. I'm here to watch the pain and then the final catharsis.
I could kind of understand that, but yeah, like that's a huge demotivator for me playing games like Hitman or anything, which I would love to do, but like I'm not gonna spend like 6 hours like. I'm not gonna. That's a point when you would need an editor. That would be a great time to have an editor, because then I can say, here, like 45 hours of me playing Hitman 2. I need you to make this down to 5 hours.
It's like my idea for playing the new Hitman trilogy pack thing is to get together like 4 players, and we each take turns playing each level. And the rule is you can't solve the level the same way as any of the previous players. But that's like that idea.
That could be really fun. That sounds fun, but that would be a lot of editing.
It's a lot of editing. It's a lot of commitment to play this long game a slow way. But like those games, it feels like I'm missing something if I just play through the game. Like you just beat all the missions, because the whole core of Hitman is supposed to be the variability of the missions. So like playing every level once seems pointless. It seems like a fun idea to like cycle through different people. But then there's the question of like, one, how long am I going to make this one group of people hang around this one game for like a year or whatever? But then there's the issue of like these do you edit down each experience significantly because of the fact that there's a lot of repetition and like the setup to that? And then so does it take 2 hours to record a 30-minute episode? Like, is that what it becomes in the long term? And that is kind of the question. Is like when this person said it sounds like hiring an editor is only really for saving time instead of money, and at that point it seems more like,
I don't think so.
It's more for people who have other sources of income. On that question, like for Let's Plays, it's relatively hard to use an editor to save time. Like you really do have to be like you have to have a project that does involve a lot of editing, like the equivalent of like these Neocranium or Up Is Not Jump style videos that are just like, I played a 20-hour game, but I condensed it into a 20-minute video or something. Like that would be a lot of editing. But outside of that context, doing a normal Let's Play, you're still keeping the majority of the stuff, and there's relatively little editing per episode most of the time, aside from when I'm getting stuck on puzzle games all day and trying to figure out how to fix the pacing. That like there's not that much for them to do on average. So just the process of like managing your files, maintaining a relationship with another person, communicating with them, receiving the files, reviewing the files, and all this other stuff is more time consuming than just doing it yourself. While also paying somebody a lot of money you don't have.
Is like some games in situations lend themselves to that, and other games don't. Like it's just like it's hard to edit, to decide what is good and what is not to put into a video. So you're gonna spend a lot of time working with someone on that stuff.
You raised the question you raised the issue of the dialogue or the commentary that you do in test runs and stuff. Like that's so like that applies only to certain games. Like Elden Ring for me was one of those where one of my favorite fights was the that big beetle bull thing on top of a huge mountain. I forget the name. That fight took me like 2 hours to beat, and I learned it very well and all that. I was stuck on a very specific type of build, so it wasn't easy. But by like halfway, I had some commentaries that I wanted to go through or to get through. I had some things that I wanted to say, and I was waiting, and there were like 3 different runs where I said the same thing. And
I do that on the third one in The Last of Us.
Because only on the third one did I actually do something interesting in the fight. It wasn't even about dying early. It was just like sometimes the fight is boring and it's not it's not worthwhile.
Well, it's like it's trying to figure out what you want to keep in as well. Like, and again, as I said, like it depends on the game that you're playing and if it lends itself to this. But like in my Last of Us 2 playthrough, there are moments where it's like, I know I can do this. I just need to play perfectly. I need to execute, right? So I will die. I'll get up to the point where I think I'm going to make it, and I'll have said a bunch of interesting stuff, and then I'll die, and then I'll be like, okay, I need to present to the video the information I just presented, make it sound natural, but also like understand internally that I already said all of this stuff. So it's like, all right, that last take was a bad take. I don't think it's insincere. Yeah. I don't think it's faking the video. It's just like, I need to remember to point out, like, for example, like I die in The Last of Us, I get to a checkpoint. Usually in my own monologue, I'm saying like, oh, okay, we have a checkpoint now. And even though I know that we have a checkpoint and I die, I know that I'm going to cut out that death because it's just useless footage. So no matter what, after that death, every single time I respawn, I just end up saying to myself like, okay, we have this checkpoint now, because I know that eventually in the final cut, in however much time it's going to be, that will be new information for the audience. Mm-hmm. And, you know, in some games, you don't need to edit out all those deaths. You don't need to edit out that content, but it also brings into question what you want to do with these videos. If I'm just playing Elden Ring and Dark Souls, I'm not going to edit out every death. It's not really a big deal for me to be like, all right, we haven't, like, my commentary there isn't going to be that special, so I can just leave that shit in. It's fine. But for Last of Us, Grounded HUDless, I'm trying to show people what the game looks like and how you approach it in this section in this style. You don't want to, like, it's just not conducive to the goal of the video to leave in 45 minutes of me not being masterful at the content, you know. And it's one of those things where you have to really balance that.
Like I'm watching right now, I was thinking of Tomb Raider 1, and I was like, I don't want to replay it again. I'm just gonna watch a 100% all secrets gameplay long play walkthrough thing on YouTube. Yeah, and it's very obvious that there's cuts that the person, you know, it's not a single speed run of the game, but the final result is a speed run 100%. It's
kind of like a segmented run.
yeah. So there's just some cuts here and there, but it really is just down to how you want what the end result is. No, it's not like it is a creative decision on the part of the Let's Player. And it doesn't have to be as wild as that time I cut out all the combat from Fallout 3. You know,
that's what I was thinking about. When we're talking about editing projects, you just every time you got into a fight, just
cut it out.
Out of an entire playthrough.
It's seamless. Wild. People were like, why do you not fight? Why are the super mutants docile? What's going on? Because I was making a point in that time in that Let's Play. But it could be other simple things. Like, for example, something I do a lot is I know in advance that I can just cut out all of the travel time. So I just treat it as fast travel. I just like, the quest sends you, oh, now you need to go 10 minutes away from here. And I actively just say, no, I can fast travel and fade to black and you know, do the YouTube shenanigans. But that's, you know, that's where the communication comes in. I think if you have an editor for that sort of stuff, you need to build a working relationship that will take longer than actually just doing it yourself.
Yeah,
I feel.
And that is the opportunity cost, right? Like that's the time you have to put time in up front with an editor, and then who knows how long they'll be there, right? Like that's the other concern is like if you form a channel identity or a you know, editor identity, or even like a partnership, right? Like that's what it is. If you're doing a video essay, in some sense, like getting an editor to edit that is also asking them to devote a bunch of time and be dedicated to this topic you want to talk about, because they're going to be watching the same content so that they know how to edit it. You know, editing an Echo video essay, for example, is not as simple as just getting like 8 hours of footage of Keith talking and then just putting it in the order that makes sense. It's like that also precludes the editor spending 50 hours playing all of the roots of Echo so that they have an understanding of what the hell he's talking about. And then it also means they need to invest whatever time they need to understand the text so that they can edit it as well. And like that's its own, you know, the complicated thing.
It's stuff that's hard to casually engage with. It's like how, like my dad used to work out of a shop, self-employed, and it was not a good setup. But he didn't want to hire anybody because whenever he did, like, it was just as likely that instead of saving time, they would finish their shift, he would look at their work, and he'd have to like then spend the next day fixing what they did instead. And so it's like literally the death of progress, but that person is still entitled to their pay and everything. Like, you can't just not pay them, but also like they might actually make your life worse. Like it's rough.
Like
being a YouTuber means doing almost all of it yourself until you're a millionaire.
I haven't watched Linus Tech Tips in a while, so I don't know how things are these days. I remember like it's a big technology channel.
Probably the biggest tech channel on YouTube.
And Linus, the head person, the founder of the channel, he a couple of years back he had some videos talking about like he worked his ass off more than now that he had so many people working for him than before. I mean, part of that is because
you got to maintain that. Yeah.
Well, he went from being a YouTuber to like a CEO of a company.
Yeah. So part of it is just, of course, the quality that you have to keep raising. I mean, the videos are better, right? So that also, of course, is going to increase the work time. But it's also, I think, just managing people is always going to be such a huge part of any company, small or big, and it is big. Like there's a reason why startups are valued for their growth capabilities, because you have a company that starts out as 20 people and 2 years later has 200 and 2 years later has 2,000. That is really difficult to pull off, not just in terms of keeping the profit, or I mean, startups don't work on profit, but or not necessarily, but not keeping the work coming, but also just managing people, because those 20 people from the beginning are so important, but they're dwarfed from by the new people that show up.
Yeah,
and it's obviously that's hyper growth, but anytime anybody is hired is just like, it's a lot of work.
It is a lot of work.
I've been thinking about experimenting and cutting the podcast into a series of videos, at least for my channel, just to see if they fit like the rant format and make people watch them a lot, as opposed to other stuff.
You could always try to do shorts and stuff, like find some funny clips in here and just short them.
And this time we had a series of topics, so I can like just cut at each question.
That's true.
Fine. We have some funny retorts every once in a while, but I think a lot of our
I don't have the patience to sit through these videos again to then find like a short's worth of like highlight, unless there's something one specific thing is burned into my brain.
The problem is that the amusement we draw from our interactions also comes from the fact that we know each other, and the viewers also are in it for that. There's like there's a lot of our humor that just relies on the already existing background. Do you know what I mean? And shorts don't rely on that at all. They need to stand on their own. You can't just make a short and be like, oh, he said a reference to a thing, or
Yeah.
I don't know how any of that works. I just completely ignore that system.
Even simple things like saying, I would love to play this game. Oh, I grew up playing this game. It's so nice. And like in a podcast, it's cool, but in the shorts, like, it doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, that's fair.
I got an early intro to that where back on Sit and Discuss, we were trying to figure out what to do with that channel over the years. And at one point we would just do like these daily vlog things. And Andrew would just kind of like rant about stuff whatever every day. But like, I struggled to come up with anything to actually make a video about back then. And half the time, if I talked about anyone else or something like that, I learned real fast about how quickly these videos are really weird out of context, and like can be a very strange experience, especially if like you like mention another creator and then they see it or something and they see it as like a personal attack, and I'm like, oh, I didn't even like figure out the tone of this thing, because that's definitely not what I was going for.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think there's also just one of the things that we don't think about, though, is that like channels like, Mr. Beast or whatever, like they have like little shorts that are goofy and seem to be really centered around their dynamics with each other. But like he gets new followers every day that have never heard of him, So you don't need to worry too much about having too much context, because people will catch one video, be curious about it, and then watch 47 other shorts in a row and figure out your personalities and your relationships from that. So,
oh my God.
But
I mean, it's easy when the videos are 15 seconds long or whatever.
Yeah. But then at the same time,
yeah.
there's the people that don't that are like mad you don't explain who everybody is every episode. Or like every time I bring up Stephanie, there's always like, who's Stephanie? And I'm like, oh.
Do you not put links?
This is weird.
I mean, yeah, for Stephanie.
I do, but
no one reads the
descriptions
doobly-doo kernel.
Yeah, doobly-doo don't exist.
Yeah, that's true. They don't, yeah.
Just like with these streams where someone will donate to me, they'd be like, why isn't he acknowledging me? And I'm like, the whole description is about that. The whole description's about that.
Thank you for the donation.
And then
yeah.
This is what happens. Who is this person in the video? They're the person that I said is in the video. Okay. Shit.
Well, that clears everything up. I just don't. I don't have the brain for skits. I guess they technically would be. Like, I don't have the brain for those kind of like Vine style, TikTok style content. I just am not.
Yeah.
I am not a comedian. I am an idiot. And
you want to know who weirdly does
draws comedy?
Fucking Bird. Bird is a shorts machine. Everything that guy
I can see that. Yeah. I can definitely see that.
God, he's just got the most honed timing when it comes to things like that. That dude is gonna boost engagement for all our channels forever.
He's on it though. Like, you can tell before we even like when we start recording. Like, he's been hyping himself up. He's there. He's gonna go do it.
He's been pre-gaming.
Yeah.
And that's why after like the 2 hours, it was like, okay, I'm done. That's it. I'm tired. Because of course you are. You've been on for 2 hours. It's not like us running on autopilot, or at least me.
What I hate about shorts is that, like, I'm technically on some level funny for a living or something, but nothing is ever funny for me long enough for it to be thought about and then scripted and then filmed. Like, it never stays funny, and I always hate the idea by the time you get through any steps of that process.
Yeah.
It has to just come out.
I always thought it was like a confidence issue, but like the more I like think about the things that I would think are funny and then writing them down and then thinking about talking about them or saying them or acting them out or whatever. And then the process of editing it and re-seeing it and rethinking about it is like this multi-long process of embarrassment. And I just don't particularly walk away from the experience going like, yeah, I should do more of these. It's definitely like okay, I did a thing and I don't think I'll ever do that again. And it's like I have that problem with cooking videos where I did enjoy making them, but every time I had to go back and edit them, there's like this huge hesitation in even finishing it because I genuinely don't really think the content's good. And people seem to enjoy it, but I don't know if they're just wrong.
Yeah.
Well, like, like, it's not that I don't think that they're being honest, that they enjoy it, but I don't think it actually has that kind of appeal. I think it is just, people just like, I like watching you make content, but the idea of making content isn't just for that. The idea is also to make content that goes places. You do kind of on some level want to have other people see your content besides the people that, are subscribed.
Well, this gets to what we were talking about earlier, right? With like how we decide what to play and like games we want to do. Like, playing games just for YouTube like seems like it's all fun and games, but like there are strategic aspects to playing things when you play them and making the content that you're making when you make it. It isn't as simple as just being like, hey, I'm gonna jump in here and like, sometimes it is. It's very easy to just like binge record a game you're interested in and then just throw it, like puke it onto YouTube to live forever. But like, if you're really trying to maximize, like, you actually have to think about these things. You really do have to pay attention to like what you're doing, what you're spending your time doing. And that goes even more with things like shorts, where you have to be punchy and you have to be funny and you have to expect when the edits are going to happen. And it's, as much as we all stream, I mean, Keith has it in his stream bio where it's like, I'm not here to be just a good streamer. I just happen to be streaming. Like, we are here for multiple purposes. And I had to have this conversation in my chat.
Different behavior incentive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like I had to have a conversation in my chat on Twitch the other day where I was like, hey, if I'm not responding to what the people in my chat are asking me, it's not because I'm ignoring you. I mean, sometimes it's because I don't notice because chat's moving too fast, but other times it's because like, yeah, I'd like to answer this question, but it's like a random question that maybe the answer isn't something I want to share on. Like it's going to live in a YouTube video for the next 10 years. Like maybe that just isn't good content. Like I have to think about, okay, who's going to be listening to this on headphones on the bus in, 3 years from now, looking for like a Jedi Fallen Order playthrough. Like, is what I'm talking about going to be engaging to them too? Someone in my chat recently asked me, like, we were just talking about like, I couldn't tell where someone was from in a Sherlock game because their name was like it was distinctly foreign, but in a way I wasn't sure what the origin was. Like he could have been like Turkish or like other various areas like Hungarian or something around there. Like I just couldn't tell. And he was like, oh yeah, like this person in my chat like went into their background. They're like, I'm like half Norwegian, half Swedish. Like, what's your like ethnic background, Toaster? And I was like, this is not like a bad question to ask. And like, it's not going to get me in trouble. But like, that's also one, aggressively uninteresting for me to respond to. And two, like, I don't need people looking through my videos in 10 years being like, oh yeah, Toaster said he was X, Y, and Z. Like, it's just not information I need to share in a video when it's irrelevant. So it's just hard. It's hard to position this like content that needs to live on multiple platforms while you're also trying to make it funny and make it work for all of the different platforms that have different approaches to them.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons why I always go into a stream with the knowledge that I'm going to edit, because I do not like watching VODs unless it's mindless gameplay. Like, it's either the, hey, thank you for the bits, thank you for the sub or whatever, that is unrelated to the game, or just even the play style and play, like the tempo of playing can be,
the tempo is really
slower.
Different. Yeah.
And so I just, whenever somebody asks me an interesting question or a question at all, actually, I'll just like actually stop playing the game and answer. And like that way I can edit things properly and not seem weird.
I tend to use the breaks in between recordings as that time to kind of respond to chat and answer. And I usually like in my Twitch bio or whatever, there's like a whole huge like paragraph that's basically like, look, if I don't respond to you, I'm recording everything that I'm playing. If I don't respond to you, it's just because I'm trying to make content. I'm trying to make something right now. And the moment I stop recording, I will be 100% invested in talking to you. But like, it's just, you do have to set those boundaries because there's different, like Toaster said, there's a lot of different reasons you would stream. Some people stream just to have other people to hang out with while they're streaming. Some people stream because they're making content and don't like doing it alone, isolated in a room. And so, and so you just have to work around that. But I think
sometimes they're just streaming to trick themselves into staying on task.
Yeah, that's what I think. That's what me and Keith do a lot. Like, I mean, and for me too, like a lot of games, there are just a lot of games that I don't know if they're going to be good stream games until I'm streaming them, right? Like, there are games that I would only ever pre-record because I know I can edit shit out of them. But then there are games that I think are better for streaming because at least when my mind is blank while I'm playing them in a sort of daze and there isn't much to talk about, I can at least read chat and respond to chat so that it can like fill time, right? And like, so it might be interesting, for example, I guess like to use a really good example, fucking Let's Playing Fatal Frame 4 would have been miserable because I had nothing to say in that game 95% of the time. Most of it was boring. If I pre-recorded that playthrough, it would have been 8.5 hours of silence, periodically interrupted by me going like, why doesn't the camera work? Why won't it let me interact with the thing on the ground? This is so frustrating. Move faster. Like, that's all it would be. With like literally hours of nothing in between it, because the game was
the game where running
nothing.
Whenever you ran, it made you look like you're underwater.
Yeah, exactly. It's just like, it's just weird. Like, it's just an odd. Some games lend themselves to certain platforms better, and like when you're trying to do what a lot of us do, which is like create content that will live forever somewhere else, it means that you are deprioritizing the in the moment of the streaming, and sometimes that's just what you gotta do. Like, that's all there is to it. But it's just hard. It's hard to make content that works everywhere while also making it work in the moment for the thing that you're streaming or recording or whatever.
And we haven't even gotten to the technical issues that can arise from any one of those things. It's just yeah.
There are so many things I wish I could do. Like, I know, Andrew, you record in Streamlabs because you can do things like have an overlay recording and then a raw recording at the same time, right?
I do OBS. I do OBS.
Oh, you do OBS.
I have,
okay.
I do OBS, but I have like one. I just actually finished this yesterday. I only have one scene for all of my streaming and recording, and I just have different. I have different sources in that one scene, and I can on my stream deck I just choose which ones I want available.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and so I turned all of my entire streaming are just modules on one screen, and so I can say, hey, I want to play a game like Final Fantasy where I don't. It doesn't matter if you can see all of the different elements or whatever, because who gives a shit about Final Fantasy? Whereas if I'm playing something like Overwatch, well, obviously Overwatch, the more you can see of the game, the better it is. So things like that, and so I can just press buttons and quickly change between them. But
my thing is, like, I usually need to have multiple. Like, it would be great for me if I could have two different recordings recording at the same time, which is like, I want one with my overlay going to my stream, but I want the raw game footage for something else. And like, I can't do that. I know you can. I think XSplit can do it and Streamlabs can do it, but I can't in OBS because I need a plugin that only works on OBS in order to do my VTubing. So it's like, I'm just stuck here. This is all I can do. And like, I mean, I have multiple scenes on OBS because I have all of my different overlays and stuff and scripts and stuff set up for those different scenes. But like, sometimes you're just like, you're stuck because of the technical side of it. Like, I would love to be able to do a bunch of crazy shit with my stream, but I can't really, because I'm also trying to record YouTube videos, and the tools I would need to do the things that could be cool would prevent me from doing YouTube recording backups and stuff like that.
Yeah. And that's another frustrating angle for stuff like even just regular Let's Playing too, comes with its own system of headaches and issues, and just content creation is tough. It's very difficult and frustrating and rewarding all at the same time. But I think with streaming too, there's a lot of, not pressure, but there's a lot of multitasking you need to be doing at all times. You're paying attention to chat. You're ensuring that the content you're creating is coming out correctly on the stream. You want to make sure the audio's balanced, the video looks right. Like, there's people, you're like interacting with people. If you're recording, you want to make sure
bit rate, making sure OBS isn't breaking.
There's so much that goes involved in something. What you would see is something as simple as you're just playing a video game and talking over it. Yeah. I am. That's the easiest part. Like, everything else about it is awful and hard, and I hate it. But like, it's just but at the end of the day, right? Like, that's the whole reason that there's this motivation of, like, when you're streaming, you are motivated to create content for someone else to enjoy, and so you're willing to push yourself to understand, endure, fix, and troubleshoot all this stuff on the fly, because ultimately you're trying to make something for other people that you hope that they enjoy, and having fun doing it along the way. But it's definitely it's such a it's so hard to try and express that across, especially when that is not the angle that someone consuming the content needs to worry about in any thought or any point in time. Like it's not, you don't, like no one goes and watches a movie in the theater and goes like, oh, I need to be very aware of how they made this. You don't need to. You can just enjoy the product that is there at your eyeballs. And that's kind of the experience a streamer wants to give too, is that you don't want someone to sit there and have to understand the intricacies of what's going on in a stream because it's not working for you. And so and so there's like a lot of these angles that you have to play at that make it kind of intimidating and kind of exhausting, but at the same time, so I don't know, it's fun. There's a lot of fun in it, and I think there's a lot of cool stuff you can do. There's a lot of amazingly cool things you can do that especially being here for like 10 years, you turn around and you go like, holy shit, it would have been so nice if I could have just had that in the past. It would have been so nice if there was a way that, I could have done that a long time ago. But oh well, it's all that matters.
Indeed.
It's time to pull the emergency escape ripcord and end the podcast so Colonel can go to bed and Andrew can get ready for Final Fantasy. And it's been 3 hours and all that.
Thank you for your time. This has been a fun one.
Yeah, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for the questions.
Yes, also that. Thank you for the questions.
Send all of your podcast questions to Dialogue Choices.
Comments for engagement.
Dialogue, yes, I guess. That would be the smart thing to do. Ask all your questions in the comments. Or dialoguechoicespodcast@gmail.com. I almost answered some of them today, but then we talked about other stuff instead, so that didn't work at all. Bye.
But on days when we don't.
Bye.
Goodbye.